so excited you're here. As you can see, we've got a ton of things going on, so let's not waste any time. You are here to have a great time, and I'm here to teach you how to make a fry bread taco. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Fry bread tacos are something that you find all over New Mexico. And because I'm a New Mexico girl, born and lived here my whole entire life, I refer to these as fry bread tacos because that's what my friends called them, is fry bread tacos. Or if I was hanging out at somebody's house, they said, my auntie made some fry bread. But sometimes you go to powwows, you go to fiestas and fairs at the state fair, you'll hear them often referred to as Navajo tacos or Indian tacos. So let's go ahead and get started. Every single person in New Mexico, I shouldn't say every single person, but this is something that's very popular. And when you go to a big event, you always will see the longest line waiting outside to get your hands on a fry bread taco. We're going to start with 2 cups of sifted flour, and that goes right into our bowl. And I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of baking powder. Now, putting our dry ingredients together first so that we can incorporate that well, I'm also going to be including 1 tablespoon of salt. And we'll shake that in. Now, when you're working together, and I'm going to use my hands because that's how I was taught to make this. When we're working together with ingredients, remember all tribes and pueblos around New Mexico have different techniques and different ways of making this type of bread, and everyone is different. And so today I'm going to be sharing a recipe that I learned from the Mescalero Apache tribe here in southern New Mexico. And this is a recipe that I love. A girlfriend was nice enough to share. So now that we've incorporated our dry ingredients, we are going to be using 1 cup milk. Now, when I'm adding this in, I like to add it just at a small amount at a time and mixing it in just as so, just incorporating it as we go. Now, often we'll see that some recipes call for water. Some will ask that you can incorporate some lard or manteca or Crisco shortening. But this one I find is perfect because I like to use 1 cup of whole fat milk. So that really gives a really delicious bread. And that's something that I prefer to do. But oftentimes we see a lot of printed recipes that will call for powdered milk. They'll call for the baking powder, the salt, and the flour. And a lot of times people don't realize the history of fry bread and what it really is to New Mexico. And it's a very special bread. Sometimes people refer to it as a bread of repression. This is a very important bread to a lot of tribes and the meaning of what it is. In about 1860, a lot of our natives were gathered up and moved off of their reservation and their family lands, and thousands of people died along the way of the long walk. So the government decided to give rations. They were trying to keep them alive, Indians alive or native, my family, my ancestors, my history. And I always keep a little bit of extra flour on the side because you can see this is kind of a hit or miss. And usually I don't do measurements. I usually just measure by my palms when making this traditional style bread. But for today, I really wanted to give some measurements because I know a lot of you are going to ask me for that. But you're also going to want to recreate this in your own home. So thanks for working with me today. This is a little messy, but it's fun, I'll tell you. Making fry bread is something you can also do outdoors. And there's no messing around, guys. You know what we're going to do. We're going to be frying bread. And that's how it happens. So clean hands are important. Making sure that you have all of your ingredients set up and ready to go. So you can see how beautiful this lovely dough is coming together. Yes. So mixing that up. And I always keep a nice damp towel by me so that I can wipe this off. And we'll go ahead and continue on with our mixing. So at this point, what I like to do is I like to let my bread rest, if possible, for a good 15 to 20 minutes. But you can see that this dough, how pliable it is, and moving this out of the way. And so I'm really going to just make sure that everything is incorporated here, pulling and tearing apart. This is a lovely dough, and as I was saying about cooking outdoors, sometimes when I'm frying, I like to go ahead and will use my frying outside, because I'll tell you, this place is going to smell like a state fair in a few minutes when I get it going. So this is lovely. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set it there, and I'm going to cover it with a damp towel. Clean off my hands real quick. Thank you guys for following along. This is a wonderful recipe, and I know that a lot of people have different ways of making it. All sorts of grannies have different recipes for tortillas, for bread, for tacos, and this is just a new way of me showing you my style of doing that. So as we have that out of the way, let's get excited about the next part. And that is where I'm going to share what we're going to do with our Navajo, Indian, Apache fried bread tacos when we're done. What I did is I started in my skillet, and I started to cook some ground beef. And I added some diced onion and some garlic. And let me tell you, this kitchen is starting to smell really, really good. Very fragrant. And so at this point, cooking my ground beef, you want to make sure that you cook it till there's no pink, and it's spices of your choice. What I like to incorporate is salt, some garlic, and some pepper, because a lot of our flavor is going to come from all the other things that we add in there. So at this point, I made some delicious pintos frijoles. Remember a couple of weeks ago we shared that recipe with you? So what these were made in my crock pot. Very simple, very easy. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add them directly into our ground beef. As you can see, this is a start of a great chili bean to go on top of these delicious fried bread tacos we're making. So as we put those in there, a lot of times you'll find that people add chili directly to this. Traditionally, I make this with a red, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. But feel free to add that green chili. You know how much I love that chili, and I love both styles, red and green. In fact, that's that famous question, red or green, right? So as we have that together, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep that just on the low so that those flavors can meld together. And today...
No oil in it, right?
Tell me one more time.
No oil?
No, this actually was a 80%, 20%. So it does have a lot of fat content in this ground beef. That's going to give us that fat flavor that we love so much. We'll go ahead and let that finish melding together, or blending together. And I'm going to go ahead and switch some burners over here carefully. Now you're joining me here. I make it look easy. I make it look fast and fun, but don't kid yourself to think that I'm able to make this in 20 minutes. I started my chili yesterday, and I'm going to share a little bit about that with you. Making chili is something I absolutely love to do. So when I use the chili, we're using these dried red chilies. You'll find these on ristras, you'll find them in the grocery stores, but I was really lucky to get my hands on some delicious, delicious red chili. So how we work with these, we're going to break off our stem, and we're going to empty out all the seeds. And then what we do is we're going to add them to, what I did is I added 10 chilies whole with the stems and the seeds removed, and I added them to 3 cups of water. The water was boiling, sorry guys, but I went ahead and I covered it and I let them sit there for 30 minutes. After the chili has been in the water reconstituted, then you go ahead and you add it into your blender. And at that time, I blend the heck out of it. And when I'm saying the heck out of it, I'm talking sometimes 5 minutes at a time, let my blender rest for a minute, run it again. It's really important, especially for those of us who have stomach type issues. You want to make sure that your chili is completely 100% blended when it's red, because remember, we're using the whole entire peel of the chili, so that incorporates a little bit of a different texture than our green chili that we roast. So once that's done, I went ahead and I strained it, and I added some basic spices, which are just salt and
Could you make it with green chili?
You could very much make it with green chili.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes. Now, most of the time when we get our green chili, that is where it's roasted, and we peel it and chop it, but we can simply put it in the blender like we've done many times here in the Zia Cooking kitchen. But today we're going to go ahead and we're going to focus on this beautiful red chili. you've noticed around the state that these gorgeous colors that happen in the fall, but this is a year-round recipe that you can use anytime. So once our chili is made, and we have our ground beef, and we have our pinto beans going, and we have our dough rising and resting, so we've got a lot going on, and so we're going to get ready to do the next part, and that is our frying. So the reason I kept my chili outside of the beans and the ground beef today, guys, is because I've got the grandbabies coming over, and not everybody wants to have their mouths burned off. Now, this is a medium blend chili, but I know that some of my family's going to want to just drench their tacos with it, and I know some are only going to want to put a little bit of a drizzle. It's really up to you. Remember, when you're cooking in your house, a lot of times people have been saying, is that an authentic recipe, Karen? Well, let me tell you, every single family cooks different. New Mexico is the 5th largest state by size. So we have northern New Mexico, southern New Mexico. We have a variety of different regions and traditions and families, and this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. So what is authentic to me might be something that I grew up with or my family grew up with, but it might be completely different than what you find in your home. So it's important that we cook for ourselves, that we cook for our palates, that we cook for our family. But one thing I've always encouraged my kids to do was to always try something. If I created something and they said, I don't think I'm gonna like that, I had a trick, especially for my boys. I said, either you can taste it or you can go clean your room. And guess what? Most of the time, in fact, all of the time, they would taste it, and now they have a lot of fan favorites, things that they would not have enjoyed otherwise. All right, let's get moving. Now we're moving on, and we've got our dough here. If you have the opportunity, you can allow this to rise up to a full hour, but for the sake of today's show and what we're doing, we went ahead and we let that go for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I have my oil here, and let's talk a little bit about our oil. Thank you, guys. The oil I'm using today is a vegetable oil. You can use a canola oil if you prefer. A lot of times you want to make sure that you're using a high heat factor, and I have actually even enjoyed some people who have used lard to cook it in, and it imparts such a delicious, lovely flavor. So you use what you're most comfortable with in your home. Now, what I do is I get a bowl and I line it with my paper towels so that it is ready to go. And we want our oil, if you guys are using a measure, you want to make sure that it's coming in right about 350 to 375. You should feel really good and confident about using that level right there. And thanks for letting me organize all of this craziness, and welcome to the Zia Cooking Kitchen. If you haven't taken time to subscribe and join our cooking family, I'd really love for you to click subscribe now. I always love all your comments and feedback that I get. And let's go ahead and let's get working with some dough. So now that our dough's been out and we've had it rest, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Now, there are a lot of different ways of making our bread and how we're going to work with it. I like to section it off into small balls, and we start working with it like that. You can always add extra flour or flour your hands. One thing I like to do is I dip in, and I like to get a little bit of oil, and that's all I'm doing is just a little bit of vegetable oil on my hand. That helps it from sticking. And I'll talk a little bit about this. Some of the best people that make this, they can clap it out. And if you've ever seen some clapping out of the traditional bread, it is a wonderful thing. I'm not that talented yet, but I'm practicing.
What do you mean by that?
Clapping it out, I'm going to try and explain that to you. What you're going to start is with your ball of dough, and you're going to go ahead and spread it out. Now, some people use the rolling pin. Some people like to go around spinning the edges. I like to start in the middle, make sure my dough comes out, and then this is how I start with and I use my knuckles. It's a little bit easier for me. And when you get really good and you're able to work with your dough and get some good stretch on it, you'll be able to actually throw it out and get the stretch on. It's something that a lot of mamas are really proud about, and it's something that is just something I'd like to share. It may be different for all different kind of cultures, but when you're here and you hear this in a kitchen, you know you've got a good cook and you know what's going on. So I don't think it'd be anything to be embarrassed or ashamed of, because a good clap out, That's the best way to get your dough going. Now again, a lot of times when I start with my kids, they're not able to do the full clap out. So what they like to do is they might go into their knuckles to do it that way. And then for those of us who aren't really comfortable with that, you can always roll them out. And the difference between rolling these and a tortilla is you want it to be a little bit thicker. And one thing I do, making sure my oil is hot, is when you come in, you'll see, using the weight of the tortilla as it goes, of our fry bread. Now, traditionally, we find fry bread that can be a full plate size, but in my kitchen for today, I'm making them smaller so that we can enjoy some little tacos. I always punch a hole right in the middle. That's what we're looking at. And one tip, cooks, you can always drop in a little ball of dough to see if your oil is ready. And that looks like it's 100% ready. So let's get our tools. I like to use some really good tools when cooking. Remember, this is hot oil. You don't want to be going in there and having an explosion. A lot of times you'll see us drop the dough in, but when you're getting it out, you want to make sure that you have some good metal tongs to use. There is nothing worse than a hot oil burn. So be careful in your kitchen, cook. Another thing that I would like to recommend is when you drop it in, you drop it away from you. In case there is a splash, it goes in that direction. And remember, all good cooks, you're going to keep your handles turned in, especially when we're working so fast. You don't want to catch yourself anywhere along the way. This is looking already lovely. How do we know they're ready, Carrie? We know by we drop them in the hot oil and we're going to cook them until the edges start turning brown. Once they get that golden brown, we know we're going to turn them over and we're going to start draining them. We only turn these once, cook, so when you're creating them in your kitchen.
How long each side, approximately?
I'm going to say that they cook very fast. I'm going to say probably 30 seconds on each side. Not much more than that is needed. We'll go ahead and turn that one over. Now, again, it's been a little bit of a day, and I'm trying to do so much at a time, but most of the time that I have these going, right when I drop it in, I start clapping out my next bread because I know I'm going to have to drop it in there, and I'm going to have a bunch of hungry people coming around. Oh my gosh, that looks delicious. So now that we have our fry bread, let me show you how beautiful that looks. And we're going to go ahead and I just set them in the bowl there, and we'll go ahead and let them drain out. So just for today's show, let me roll out one more real quick, and I won't take the time to clap it out with my beginning clapping skills. I hope everybody who has been teaching me how to do the fry bread has a little bit of love for me today as I share this great recipe. Thank you everybody for following along. Another technique that you can do that I saw some families do is they take their fork rather than putting a hole, and they simply just put some fork marks in it as such, and that is so the bread doesn't puff up like a sopapilla. So we'll go ahead and we'll do one more like that. And look at that. That is so delicious. I'm really happy that I did this today and was able to show you guys. So that is wonderful. We'll let that one cook on that side, and then let's go ahead and get ready so we can dress up this taco, and I can show you how great it is. All right. Looking delicious. Working in your kitchen can be really fun. This is a great project to do. These are something also you can serve with honey if you desire to make it as a dessert style. But for today we are making these delicious fried bread tacos. And I'm so glad that I was able to share that with you.
Can you eat them cold as well?
You can cook them. Usually what I like to do is I like to get at least 10 or 15 put up in front, because then all of a sudden people are going to start coming in, they're going to break off a piece, they're going to want it with honey, they're going to see all my delicious beans and chili, and they're going to want it jump into that. So I'm glad that you asked that question, because a lot of times people will make their fried bread in the morning. So I'm going to share with you how to build this delicious taco that we're going to enjoy today. And again, when you have a little bit more time, and you're able to create this for your family, I want to talk a little bit about the toppings. When you're setting up your taco bar, I like people to add what they like because everybody is different. So today we have some delicious shredded cheese. We have some fabulous sour cream. We've got chopped onions, and today I mixed it up. I use yellow onions just to freak you all out. You know how I love those white onions. The reason that I use the yellow onion today is because it's a little bit sweeter, and since I make that available for everybody, I want to have that there. Sorry guys, and thank you again for following along. So here we have our delicious fry bread. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our traditional toppings. So let's get moving. So we have our delicious fry bread here. And we are going to top it with some of these delicious beans and ground beef. And then I come in with a drizzle of that lovely chili. Just fabulous. Now for our toppings, again, you can use what you like. You know me, I'm going to be the queso queen when it comes to this on my fry bread.
Man, that smell. Ooh.
Yes, love that. I'm going to go ahead and put on a little bit of our lettuce there. And I like the sour cream. Now feel free to add your fresh chopped onions if you'd like. I have an appointment with a client this afternoon, so I'm not going to indulge in those onions right now. But this is a beautiful way to incorporate some vegetables. You can add more lettuce if you'd like. It becomes a delicious salad on a fried piece of bread. Now, some people ask me, how do you eat this? Do you fold it over and take a bite? Well, you can, but most of the time I like to try to be at least a civilized New Mexican girl and sit down with my fork and my knife, and that's how I like to enjoy my fry bread. But you can enjoy it however you want. Some of the best fry bread I've had most delicious toppings, traditional toppings like mutton, all sorts of homegrown chili, and a variety of things. So it's been wonderful to have you guys in my kitchen today. All of the recipe and all that ingredients that I use will be listed in the drop box below. Make sure you watch it and then watch it again so that you can write down and figure out how to make this wonderful topping in your kitchen. Let me turn around and grab a knife and let's see if I did my state proud with this lovely fry bread. I'll tell you what, we're gonna try it. That hot chili. Grab a little bit of that on there too. Thank you guys for following along.